This happened to me a few years ago during the summer. At this time, I was only about 8 years old, and my cousin was 7, just a year younger. Because of this, we were quite close. My cousin came to visit me that summer, as originally she lived in a large city. I, on the other hand, lived in a small town. That fact didn't hinder our relationship. We still lived relatively close and nearby each other. Anyways, I had a neighbor who was around 60 years old. He was single, living alone in his huge mansion. Since my town was small, word got around that apparently he had died of a heart attack in the middle of the night. It was only gossip since he liked to keep his privacy and liked to be alone. Also, because as a 60-year-old, he was shockingly very healthy for his age. Little was known about him, but what I knew about the man was that he was single, had no family, no brothers, no sisters, no cousins or uncles and aunts. He was an orphan and was very kind, sweet and caring. I thought that it was sad that he had no kids, so he never felt the love of a child and could not have passed on his family tree or lineage. About a month after he passed away, me and my cousin were playing outside. My parents were not home, so we decided to go into his house and explore his mansion. We thought this would be fun, but this was a mistake. When we entered the house, I felt a weird sensation come over me. This sensation was not created because of the fact that the house was absolutely enormous. No, it felt almost like there were eyes on me the moment I stepped a foot in the house. Disregarding that fact, my cousin and I played around and took some of the stuff because we thought they were cool, not knowing that it would be disrespectful. Soon it got dark outside, and I really wanted to leave and go back home. My cousin, on the other hand, wanted so desperately to check out more rooms. The disturbing feeling I got while entering the house never left me. So I got fed up and decided that I had to leave right now. So I left. Unsurprisingly, when I left, a calm wave of relief hit me, as if some weight had left my shoulders. To be clear, I wasn't going to actually leave, of course. I just got outside and hid so that I could scare her when she comes out. I waited a few minutes, but nothing happened. I stood there behind some bushes, waiting and waiting, seemingly forever. About an hour later, I hear my cousin scream. She then bolts right out of the house, out of the front door. I almost missed her. She threw everything she was carrying onto the front yard and did not look back. Back in my house, she became very quiet. When I asked her what happened and why she ran for her life, she wouldn't say anything. In fact, she didn't want to tell me what happened. I was concerned for her. But if she insisted on not wanting to tell me anything, there was nothing I could do. That night, the disturbing sensation I got when I was in the house came back to me. I felt strange and tingly everywhere. It felt as if there were pairs of eyes on me staring at me again in my room, and it seemed to radiate off of the things that I took from my neighbor's house. But there was an off chance that maybe I was just feeling weird, because a bunch of random new things were in my room, and maybe I just felt a little claustrophobic in my room with all of it. Anyways, the next day, she left to go back home, and I didn't hear from her the entire day. I thought maybe she was still shaken from going into my neighbor's house, so I didn't think too much of it. Well, the day after, my cousin calls me and said, "Hey, Alexandria, can I tell you something? The reason why I don't want to tell you what happened is because when I was looking in one of the rooms, I saw the man hanging and smiling. He began running after me, and I kept seeing him in the night at the corner of your bed, staring at you. I felt weird that moment and threw away all the things I took from him. And now I just try not to get too close to his house." I just turned 31 years old, so this story happened a very long time ago. Back then, I was 20 years old, but don't let that fool you. I was a very tall and strong woman, and I still am. For reference, I am just over 6 feet tall, and I am not a skinny or lanky woman. Back then, it was summer, and me and 2 of my friends from college decided to hang out and just have some fun. To be honest, it was my very first actual vacation, so I was stoked. Our plan was to do a girls-only road trip and travel across several states. We were driving when one of my friends said she had to use the bathroom. The only problem was that we passed Salt Lake City about an hour ago, and at that moment, there was no bathroom in sight. Of course, me and my other friend was kind of annoyed, but to be honest, I had to go too. When we finally reached a rest stop with a bathroom, we all got out and relaxed for a bit. After using the bathroom, I grabbed some chips from the car and walked over to a table not far from the rest stop. I needed to be alone after being stuck in a car with 2 other people breathing the same hot air as you. You know, the suffocating feeling. A few minutes after I sat down and began eating my chips, an older gentleman showed up, maybe in his late 40s to 50s. To be honest, I had no idea where he came from, since I wasn't particularly paying attention to my surroundings. He sat right across from me and stared for a bit. There was only one table in the area, so I didn't think much of it. The only weird thing that came across was the fact that he just stared at me, as if he was expecting me to say something to him. Well, after a few awkward seconds, which felt like minutes, he began asking me questions like, "How are you?" and "What's your name?" The talk that you would do to get to know someone. Obviously, I was not in the mood to chat. I mean, I literally just got out of a stuffed car to get some fresh air by myself at a table. So, I began giving him one-worded answers, so he would get the message that I do not want to speak with him. Maybe another time, but right now, I do not want to be disturbed. In fact, I didn't even look at his direction, even though I knew that he was staring at me. I guess he got fed up with the one-worded answers and abruptly asked me, "How much?" I didn't know whether he was being serious because I was practically ignoring him, and maybe he wanted to get my attention and make me look at him. Well, I looked at him in disgust and asked him, "What?" He repeated himself and asked again sternly, but this time he reached over the table and grabbed my hand. I pulled back and told him to F off. Unsurprisingly, he got angry at me. He stood up, staring down at me, and told me, "That is not the way you should speak to your elders." He was furious. He reached for my arm again, but I dodged it and stood up. As I got up, I could see that I was practically towering over him. He was so much shorter than I was. At this point, he probably got intimidated or something because he began swearing at me profusely and backs off, back into the distance. I stood there, unable to move my arms or legs as tears began swelling up in my eyes. After a few minutes or so, my friends found me and asked me if everything was alright because they didn't know where I went after I used the bathroom and thought to wait in the car. But as they waited and waited, there was no sign of me anywhere, so they started looking for me. I didn't say anything because I couldn't at the moment. I just stood there, teared up. They thought that since it was my first time on a road trip, that it had taken a toll on me and tried to comfort me. But I burst into tears and told them what had happened. They tried their best to comfort me as I cried and screamed. I was lucky that I was taller than them, and that the height difference made them cower in fear. I just can't imagine what would have happened if I was a shorter woman. What would he have done? Grab me and not let go? Take me to his car somewhere? Would I ever be able to see my friends and family? I would much rather not think about it. I'm just glad nothing like that ever happened. When I was about 10 or 11 years old, I shared a room with my older brother who was around 15 years old. We live in a suburb area in New York, not the greatest area, but not riddled with crime. There are 2 windows in my room, one that overlooks the backyard and one that connects to the front porch. It came in quite handy for my brother to sneak out and meet with his friends. If you step out the window, you are on the porch, so anyone on the porch can access this window. I was never bothered by that thought, because quite honestly, it had never crossed my mind. My bed was touching this window, while my brother's bed was perpendicular to mine. It was an odd setup, but that's beside the point. Now, this was before we had any sort of smartphone or laptop to keep ourselves occupied, so on nights when we weren't sleepy, we would stay up talking to each other and making dumb games to pass time. This event took place during the summer. We stayed up until late hours of the night, perks of having no school. It was probably around 2 a.m. and eventually we're playing a game where one of us was a goalkeeper and the other one was taking a shot. Football or soccer terms. We would both say at the same time either left, center, or right. If the goalkeeper guessed the same as the one taking the shot, he would get a point, and if the person taking the shot said a position other than what the goalie said, they got a point. We went for a couple of rounds of this, and I was beating his ass at the time, even though that's irrelevant. I don't remember what round we were on, but we did our 3, 2, 1 countdown. My brother, the goalkeeper, said left. I, the shooter, said center. The voice from outside the porch window said left. Me and my brother froze. We had the shade down, but my mom had left the porch light on, so that was the only light illuminating our room. The dim porch light coming in from the borders of the shade. At the time, in my house, was my mother on the opposite side of the house, my sister the room over, my dad in the basement, and me and my brother crapping our pants, practically. We waited for what seemed like an hour, but was probably only 30 to 45 seconds. And we heard a giggle and a playful knock at the window. Let's go another round. Come on, boys. The voice said in a cheerful, playful tone. Honestly, I want to say it was a scary voice and sounded menacing, but it didn't. It sounded like a woman, not too old, but not too young, and it was just normal, like a normal sounding voice. Nothing off about it besides where it was coming from and the time it came. Me and my brother were seriously freaked out, and I was about to break down because of how close I was to this woman. The thought that all I had to do was lift the shade and I'd be face to face with this person scared the crap out of me, and made me go as still and stiff as if I had just looked into Medusa's eyes. After a while of me and my brother not responding, my brother started slowly moving from his bed to the door as to not make any noise. As my brother was tiptoeing to the door, the sound of nails being ran down a window started. It was very slow from top to bottom. At that point, my brother made it to the door. He looked back at me and brought his finger to his lips, gesturing me to keep quiet. Once the nails stopped running down my window, I heard her light footsteps make their way off of the porch and disappear. I laid there for an eternity, not moving until my brother returned, and I saw my mom move hastily by my door, making our way to the front door. The porch light flipped off, and I was left in darkness with my brother waiting in the doorway for my mom's return. I heard my mom call my dad up the stairs and his groggy, annoyed footsteps coming up. They talked, then came in me and my brother's room, and we relayed what happened. Apparently, my mom caught sight the lady turning out of our driveway on foot behind some tall bushes. Thank God we had a long driveway, otherwise my mom probably would have thought we were crazy. Considering no harm was done besides leaving me terrified of my window, my parents didn't call the police. They just thought it was really weird and stayed up the rest of the night to make sure she didn't return. I'm 17 now, my brother is in college, so I have the room to myself. My bed still touches the window because I'm too lazy to move the rest of the furniture in my room so I can move my bed. The shade to that window has not been opened since that incident, and probably never will.